Welcome to episode 3 of the Anything Mentionable podcast. I'm your host, Tim Madigan. Because of his gentle spirit, soft voice, and the slow cadence of his speech, television personality Fred Rogers was often caricatured. Looking back, one might even be tempted to underestimate his impact on the world. Fred was the host of a television program for preschool children, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, that ran on PBS for more than 900 episodes between 1968 and the year 2000. But over the years, discerning people have suggested that Fred, who was 74 when he died from stomach cancer in 2003, was actually a giant of human history, a person who was known as America's secular saint. For the generations of children who faithfully watched him over the years, he was a friend in a very real sense, a grown-up who made for them a safe place in an often confusing and frightening world. What's more, in every episode, Mr. Rogers offered compassion, love, and wisdom that nurtured audience members of any age. Here is just one of thousands of examples.
But you know, the toughest thing is to love somebody who has done something mean to you, especially when that somebody has been yourself. Have you ever done anything mean to yourself? Well, it's very important to look inside yourself and find that loving part of you. That's the part that you must take good care of and never be mean to, because that's the part of you that allows you to love your neighbor. And your neighbor is anyone you happen to be with at any time of your life. Respecting and loving your neighbor can give everybody a good feeling.
It was the fall of 1995 when a colleague of mine at the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, a person named June Naylor Harris, suggested Captain Kangaroo and Mr. Rogers as sources for my story about television violence and how it affects children. I made the necessary arrangements leading to the day that fall when the phone rang at my newspaper desk. It was Bob Keeshan, Captain Kangaroo, another icon of children's television. I was thrilled and somewhat awestruck because I had grown up watching the captain, and as it turned out, Mr. Keeshan was a very nice man. Then, just a few minutes after he and I had hung up, my phone rang again and I heard that familiar voice. Well, hello, this is Fred Rogers calling from Pittsburgh. I didn't watch Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, though my kids did. In fact, I probably knew more about Fred from Eddie Murphy's famous parody of him on Saturday Night Live than from Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood itself. But Fred was a celebrity, so I was certainly intrigued. And the interview was unlike any I had ever conducted. Tim, do you know the most important thing in my life right this minute? He asked late in our talk. I said I could have no idea because we had just met. It's talking to Mr. Tim Madigan on the telephone. That interview went well enough that I was invited to spend 3 days with Fred in Pittsburgh for a newspaper profile on the man himself. I was on set as he filmed an episode of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. He and I conducted several long interviews, and it was in that first visit that I began to see that the Fred Rogers of television and the Fred Rogers of real life were one and the same. He was a profoundly kind, wise, and uniquely solicitous person. At the end of my visit, Fred walked me to my car through the rain, gave me a hug, and told me he was glad we were friends. In the months to come, we began a regular correspondence. But there was a risk to being friends with Fred Rogers. In life and in friendship, he wasn't necessarily interested in the superficial. Instead, he wanted to know about what he called a person's essential invisibles, the things about someone that don't necessarily meet the eye. Anything mentionable is manageable, he liked to say. Thus the name of this podcast. Perhaps it was his gentle but persistent invitation for me to share my own essential invisibles that led me to write a very different sort of letter to him, one that was dated June 22nd, 1996. In it, I told Fred about years of crippling depression and self-loathing that I couldn't seem to shake, no matter what my professional achievements. In my letter, I blamed most of my agony on the feeling that I had never been able to get my father to be proud of me. So, Fred, I have a question to ask you, I wrote. Would you be proud of me? For whatever reason, inspiration, desperation, or a combination of the two, I mailed the letter away. His reply was dated July 1st, 1996. Dear Tim, the answer to your question is yes, a resounding yes. I will be proud of you. I am proud of you. I have been proud of you since first we met. I'm deeply touched that you would offer so much of yourself to me and look forward to knowing all that you would care to share in the future. Nothing you could tell me could change my yes for you. Please remember that. I feel blessed to be one of your friends. Only God can arrange such mutually trusting relationships. For sure, yes, Tim, yes. Love, Fred. From that time on, and almost every one of the scores of letters and email messages he sent, my friend signed off with those 4 letters, IPOY. Not coincidentally, within a few years, my furies, as Fred called them, were in retreat. Our friendship eventually became the basis of my critically acclaimed memoir, I'm Proud of You, that was first published in 2006. Years after that, I heard from a person named Harry Parker, a longtime professor of theater at Texas Christian University and a highly accomplished director of more than 100 stage productions. Harry told me he thought that my book might make a great play. Happily, as it turned out, he was right. He and I co-wrote the script for the play I'm Proud of You that made its world premiere in the fall of 2003 at Circle Theater in Fort Worth. After 3 other successful productions at theaters around the nation, the play now returns to the Metroplex. It will open at Theatre Arlington on August 8th. As he did with the Circle premiere, Harry will also direct this latest production. I'm delighted that my good friend joins me now on the Anything Mentionable podcast, and I do hope you enjoy the episode. Hi, Harry.
Good morning, Tim.
I am literally thrilled to have you here today.
Thanks.
It's been about 5 years we've been running around together, and the details of which you will share with us in a minute, but having regular lunches at Joe's Pizza, Pasta, and Subs on Hewlin Street, how's that for a plug?
Maybe that's pretty good.
Maybe that's going to be a free meal for us at some point. And when you walked in today, and I could tell that you were very nervous, and you said what?
I said, this is just like sitting around talking to Joe.
Exactly.
Yeah. We do this all the time.
I didn't really think that you would be nervous, but I try to be kind to my guests, and
It's good.
It has been 5 years, and I just want to mention that last episode we had one of your students on.
Right, Maddie.
Maddie Suttles, and she is a light if there ever was one.
She is that. She's the real thing.
Well, I was thinking about today that one of the things I so enjoyed about that was I got a little window into the influence you have had on the lives of your students over the years. You've been teaching for a while, and you multiply Maddie times how many thousands of young people who whether they end up in the theater or not.
Right.
How you've sent out into the world, and so it was just very moving and gratifying to me to have that experience and be able to see that, and we had a wonderful time with Maddie, and I highly recommend for those of you who haven't seen the episode to go back to it, because she has a lot of important things to say.
Tim, I appreciate that, but I also want to let you know that every one of those thousands of students have impacted me. So it's a very reciprocal arrangement. And so I'm changed by people like Maddie and thousands of others. So it's a privilege to be a teacher. There's no question. It's a lot of work, but it's also an honor. And I'm a richer, happier guy because of all those students I've gotten to interact with through the years.
I've just loved your passion for teaching, for theater. You're a very fortunate person in that you just love what you do.
I do.
It's just fun to be around that, frankly, and it's kind of rubbed off on me. You won't ever let me be in a bad mood. I don't like that. But it's just, and I can say this without any kind of fear of contradiction, that I think there's no person on this planet who is more passionate about live theater than you. And so that is the fact that you've shared your world with me in this way, on this journey with this play and this story is just, I'm very, I love you and I'm glad to be your friend, and I look forward to a lot of new adventures over time. We're sitting here on a Saturday morning after the first week of rehearsals at Theatre Arlington with the latest production of I'm Proud of You, and I just wonder what your impressions are at this point.
Well, it's been a great week. We've had so much fun and enjoyed beginning to re-explore the play again. I would tell you that I'm having an experience directing this show unlike any I've ever had. I don't think I've ever returned to a show a year and a half later. And, of course, a year and a half ago when we premiered the show at Circle Theater, there was a lot of, not anxiety, but just excitement, I think, about a new play and how is it going to work on stage and how our audience is going to respond to it. And it went beautifully, and it's had several productions since, which is so exciting and gratifying. But then now here I am as the director coming back a year and a half later, and we've tweaked the script. We haven't changed it substantially, but we've made a few little tweaks, so that's different. But I'm also coming back with the same cast, with one exception. And that's 25% of a cast of 4.
Right.
And
yeah,
so
right.
It's a reunion. It's old home week. The band's back together again, and we're enjoying each other's company as we did the last time, but we're also enjoying getting into this story again. And I'm excited about the new things we're going to find. We've all got a level of familiarity with it, so I think we can go farther in the time allotted than we did the first time. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
They're going to be off book much more quickly. The show's all staged. So that's an exciting component. But I think the other big change for us is how different this space is.
Right.
Circle Theater, for those who don't know, is a very intimate thrust theater in the basement of a building in downtown Fort Worth. And boy, it's like the audience is sitting on stage with you. It's very, very close. Theatre Arlington, while it has not a huge number more seats, it does, 185, something like that. It's a proscenium stage with a much wider opening, and there's that distance between the audience and the stage. And so the actors have a different kind of requirement to fill that space with the scale of their work, keeping its reality and intimacy. So it looks different, I can tell you that, because we're in a bigger space, a very different kind of set. There's more movement, because I think as a director there needs to be than there was in that very close, intimate Circle Theater production. So it's a mixture of things we know and love about the play that we're getting ready again, and things we're learning about the play that are different this time. And that makes it an exciting process.
I could tell, my assumption going into it, knowing you and knowing the other actors and how good they were and how deep they were, frankly, that you were going to find new things, a lot of new things in the play this time, especially with the benefit of having some familiarity with the words. And I sat in on the first 2 rehearsals last week, or part of the first two, and I could see that happening, starting from the first read through, and then in the hour I was with you in rehearsals. There's going to be a lot of very subtle changes to it all along the way. But as I said just a minute ago, in the aggregate, it's going to make a huge difference.
Yes.
And so it's going to be a beautiful thing. And I think that I would say to people who have seen, who saw the production at Circle Theatre, and you liked it, I would highly encourage you to come to Arlington, because I just think this is going to be next level, and I'm just absolutely thrilled to be part of it. And
me too.
And thank you for everything. So tell me how this started.
This project?
Yeah.
From my perspective, it started when you visited a Sunday school class that I was attending at University Christian Church, probably 8-9 years ago, I'm guessing how long ago it was. And you talked mostly about your friendship with Fred Rogers in that class. You talked about other things too. And I didn't really know you or know very much about you. I think I had read some of your things in the Star Telegram, but I don't know that they'd really registered with me. But you were introduced as a writer, or maybe even a former writer, for the Star Telegram at that point. And I was just intrigued by the story you told, and about the friendship you made with Fred, and what an impact and an influence it had on your life. And so I bought the book. Maybe you were out selling books. I don't know. I don't think you had them for sale there in the church. That wouldn't have, I don't know. But I bought the book shortly thereafter, and I read the book and was really captured by it. I was really moved by it. I had an experience reading your book that I don't think I've had before, and I'm not a young guy. I read this book and thought, oh, this is a play. This could be a play. This should be a play, is really what I thought. And I thought, oh, do I want to write this? Would Tim let me write this? Do we want to work on this? I didn't know you very well. I liked you from your talk, but I called you. I got your number from Chad Klein, I think, and I called you and introduced myself. I think we had spoken briefly after that class, but 30 people spoke to you. But I said, can I take you to lunch? Let's go to lunch. And that first lunch was not at Joe's.
No, it wasn't.
It was at Carson's, and you didn't bring cash.
Well,
and I had to pay. I had to really buy his lunch.
I didn't bring cash, and you had to buy, and I don't think you've ever completely forgiven me for that. I've tried to make up for it by picking up the tab at.
It doesn't matter. No. So I like to bring it up.
Moving on.
And long story short, maybe too late for that. You said, let's write it together. And so we started on this journey together. And I think I was really slow getting started. I said, let me put a draft together. And I was on a sabbatical, and that helped me kind of get started. And the first time I showed you a draft, you said, oh, this is great, but this is the book. You put everything in the book in this play, so this will be a nice 5-hour show. Let's think about what we want to cut.
Right.
And I needed to hear that from you. I needed to hear that it was going to be okay with you to leave a whole bunch of the book out.
Right.
And so when I knew that, we were able, I think, then to really kind of get around to shaping a play that was stage-worthy. But I think what I brought to the project primarily was having sat through a lot of plays and read a lot of plays that I didn't think worked very well. And so I had in my mind an idea that the action needed to be constant, that we needed to drive this along. And then from a commercial standpoint, because I wanted somebody to produce the play, I said, let's do this with no more than 4 actors. Let's do this with a unit set where we're not trying to change scenery back and forth. Let's keep it affordable to produce. And then when we had a draft that we thought was ready-ish, I said, let me call some actors that I think are right for these parts. and let's do a reading. And I had to kind of bring you along on the reading process. What is this about? And we can only read it and reread it and edit it and correct it so far without actors, because a play isn't written to be read. A play is written to be performed. And so you have to hear it that way. If it's a book, you have an editor who keeps telling you what to do, and then you get to a finished product. With a play, actors and finally an audience tells you what you have to do to get to a finished product. So we had a series of readings. I think we did 2 without an audience, and then we did previews kind of readings with invited audience, and they filled out questionnaires and told us what they thought about it as well. But each time we made pretty big changes to the script. A lot of it having to do with how long it was still. The most difficult part was cutting it down to the size we wanted it to be. But I think the other thing that happened was it was pretty magical from the first time we had actors, because we were fortunate to have Richie Haratine playing Tim and Randy Perlman playing Fred Rogers. We also had Gabe Whitehurst and Lisa Durham Fairchild in the original quartet,
Right.
As 2 ensemble actors. And those actors were right for the roles, but they're more than that.
Right.
They are really thoughtful, skilled, invested people in the art form. And they immediately invested in the story to a very high degree, and we all became a tight company. And they were very honest with us about their feelings about the play, both positive and suggestions to make, things that confused them. And so I think as writers, it really helped us. We could now hear their voices as we were revising and rewriting. And so we did a major revision, and about a year later we did another reading, and then we had that preview with the audience, and we got to Circle Theater. And it's amazing. I've told people this in the theater as I've described the play to them. They said, you had the same 4 actors through the whole process? Nobody had to drop out or decided to take another project? And I said, no, we were blessed to have all 4 of them. And now I've got 3 of them back.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you. It just feels like, because of the nature of the play and what happens in it, I'm biased, I realize, but it takes a kind of person to really to do these, to have the willingness and ability to go deeper into some of these things we talk about in the play. The first reading was, I'll always remember as being one of the most profound moments of my life, because for a number of different reasons. One is that, as a writer and hearing your words or our words coming out of the voice of a talented actor in itself is an amazing experience. But it's my story, and it's my life story, and it was just so moving to me. I just sat there through the whole thing quite literally and just cried. And at the end of it, I just went up and hugged each one of them. And I think that you and I both kind of thought, well, I think we're kind of locked in with this group if they're willing,
Yep.
What's the play about?
About 90 minutes. Thanks. That's one of the oldest theater jokes in the world. I appreciate the setup. The play is, I'll talk about these characters as if they were fictional, even though they're not. The play is about a young man who is
Youngish
man who's given an opportunity to interview this celebrity, Mr. Rogers, for a story he's writing about violence on television and how it impacts children. And my take on what happens in that first even telephone conversation that they have is that Fred, being Fred, picks up on the fact that there's a lot sort of churning in this interviewer that doesn't have anything to do with the story he's writing or the interview that he's experiencing with Fred. And so Fred, again, because he's who he is, he wants to build a relationship. He reaches out. I'd like to know more about you. Tell me things about you that are not obvious to other people. Immediately, he's interested in a relationship that goes far beyond an interview. And because of that, the character of Tim does in fact have an opportunity to get to know him better. Fred's office calls and says, would you like to do a full story? I've always sort of wondered, was Fred just saying that so he could get to know you better? He might have been. Did Fred need another profile of himself? Seriously,
Yeah, right.
know?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I think Fred knew you were in trouble. I think his antenna were that finely tuned. And he thought, well, if I can get this young man to spend an hour with me, maybe face to face, then maybe we can get to know each other better. I just think Fred was collecting people who needed to be loved. And that's really how the play gets going. And so what I think happens in the play, I've said this to you before, I think audiences, whether they're conscious of this or not, Tim is a kind of an everyman character. I think all of us go through, I'm quoting the play now, the dark night of the soul. We have moments when we're in pain, when we're hurting, when we're in trouble. And it's, as Fred says, it's human. It happens to everyone. And it's nothing to be ashamed of or embarrassed about. But you need to work through it. You can't ignore it. You need to work through it. And Fred becomes a catalyst for that in Tim's life. And so we see how Fred's advice, how Fred's encouragement, how Fred's wisdom allows the character of Tim to rebuild a relationship with his father. It had been a tough relationship, one that had created a lot of pain for Tim, and he found out through Fred's wisdom ways to build bridges into a relationship with his father that was so valuable to him, meant so much to Tim, and I think to his father too, right? This is weird. I'm talking fictively about these real people.
It is kind of strange.
I know.
But as you're talking, I'm going,
Yeah.
and I don't want you to lose your train of thought.
No, that's fine.
But your insights into me are almost kind of scary. We're in rehearsals at Circle for the initial run, we'd be giving notes to actors about a certain scene that Tim is in, and you would say, this is what Tim is thinking and feeling right now, and and often you'd say you'd describe a fairly dark place. And as I'm listening to this, I've often wanted to say, Harry, I'm listening.
I'm sitting right here.
Anyway, please continue.
Yeah. The other big relationship that's depicted in the play that is broken, that Fred helps facilitate a recovery, is between Tim and his younger brother Steve. And Steve gets a bad health diagnosis, and Fred just says, "Go to your brother." And Tim says, "We haven't talked really in years." And he says, "I think you know what to do. Go to your brother, and let God figure it out. But don't sit home and wish you had called him." No, right? So Fred just becomes this savant, this mentor in Tim's life during this 7 or 8 years when they were friends. And I think it helps pull the character of Tim. I'm not talking about you because I don't know. He helps pull the character of Tim to a place that's far more healthy and whole, and enables him to enjoy his life and his relationships more.
You'd made, and I thought this is a really interesting way of putting it, that you've said before and at other times, but that Tim is every man. And so Fred gets to work on all of us through this character.
Right.
Am I?
No, you're exactly right. And the things that Fred says to him, the nuggets that he says to him that are repeated in the play and become a kind of credo or mantra for Tim. These are the universal Fredisms
Right.
that he didn't just say to Tim.
Right.
That he said to a lot of people, that he said in his writings, his interviews, that
Yeah.
he said on his television show,
Right.
wrapped up for children.
Yeah.
And I love that he says in the play that he never talks down to children. And you know, his aura, his image is so gentle and soft-spoken and I'll just say nerdy, right? That you think, oh, he's talking down to them. If you listen to to Fred in those programs, he is not talking down to children. He's telling them the truth, but he's doing it kindly.
Well, yeah, I say in the introduction to this that there would be a temptation to, he was often caricatured because of, how he spoke and how he was, and there's a temptation to minimize or the impact he's had on the world because he was a host of a children's television program.
Right.
But for the generations of children that watched his program, he had created a safe space, but he was talking at a very deep level about important things.
Correct.
And things that nourish people, his audience of any age, so it was, and that discerning people have said that. He is actually one of history's great human beings, and I think that I would certainly agree with that. And it's nice that we're participating in his legacy this way. To this production and to the kind of the nuts and bolts of the thing. At the time, and he is a celebrity, and it's probably less of an issue now because not as many people are quite as familiar with him. But you say that, the person who's going to play Fred, this is not an impression.
No, and the script says that. One of the credos, one of the nuggets that Fred has, it's a quote from a book that he loves, is that what is essential is invisible to the eyes. And so I quote that at the beginning of the play in the stage directions to try to free future actors and directors from feeling like the actor who plays Fred needs to do an imitation of Fred. What they're required to do is play the character, play the role, not do an impression. And so they don't have to look like Fred. They don't have to sound like Fred. Who sounds like Fred?
Right.
No one. Only
Right.
Fred sounds
Right.
like Fred.
Right.
Right. So if you're working hard to try to sound like Fred, I think we're going to miss what the play's about. And what the play's about is the content of Fred's character, the wisdom of Fred's vision and advice. And those are the things that make the role work in the play. And we're very fortunate to have Randy Perlman. I said to him after rehearsal the other night, I said, Randy Perlman is so genuine and so kind and so wise that this role fits you like a glove. And he was just taken aback a moment. And I said, so don't mess it up.
Right.
Just bring as much of yourself as you feel like is appropriate to this role. But he has a warmth and a genuineness that is very Fred-like, I think, in the part. And we've seen other productions of the play.
Yeah.
Between the Circle production and this one that's in process now at Theatre Arlington, we've seen it in Round Rock. You saw it in Minnesota. We saw it at Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. And we've seen all different kinds of actors playing Fred. Some of them costumed to look more like Fred than I like to do in our production. But what really matters is what's invisible to the eyes.
Yes. Well, the other thing about it too is that, Randy, before that first reading, watched all the videos, and he was
Right.
prepared to do
Right.
He was prepared to do an impression, and even in the first rehearsal at Circle, after the first read through, I think that maybe the cadence of his speech was slow, and trying to capture Fred. And he said to him, Randy, just you do you.
That's right.
And you could almost kind of see him sigh in relief.
Oh, yes.
Because he is, I spoke that it takes a certain kind of person, not just an actor, to play some of these roles. And I think that I just love Randy to death, and he and I have become good friends. And I'm just so fortunate and happy that we have this excuse to hang out together, for one thing. But, it's we have a picture that we're going to put up here of the three of us at a rehearsal at Circle, having a good time, which we generally do.
Yeah, we try to do that every night. Yes.
And so it's just like, and I see him really, as we were speaking before, finding new levels with the freedom that you've given him and the freedom the experience has given him.
Well, he's a very dedicated, professional, talented actor. So he did his homework.
Yes.
And he was prepared to work on sounding like Fred. Mm-hmm. And I think he was relieved when we said, oh, no, you don't need to try to sound like Fred. These are Fred's words. You'll sound like Fred.
Right.
If you say these words well.
Yes, yes. Tell me about Richie Haratine.
He's a gem. He is so dynamic and exciting to watch on stage. I first got to know him during the Trinity Shakespeare Festival, which we used to have at TCU, and he played the title role in the Scottish play, the name of which theater people don't say out loud. You know which one I mean.
No, but that's okay.
Yeah, you don't know the Scottish play?
No.
Oh, Mackers? Sometimes we call it Mackers. We're very superstitious about the name of this play.
No. Anyway,
he played.
Sorry to disappoint you.
You still don't know what play I'm talking about?
No.
A Shakespeare tragedy, a one-word title. The first syllable is Mac.
Macbeth.
You can say it, but I'm not going to say it. See what we've learned here today, friends? Yeah, theater people don't say the name of that play out loud. It's an old superstition.
Really?
Unless you're in it, and you're saying the character's name. No, you don't say that.
Oh, but I can say it.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, Macbeth.
Yeah.
Okay.
He played that role at Trinity Shakespeare Festival,
okay.
Did Richie, and he was stunning. He's a superb professional actor. Dynamic, such brilliant ideas. So it's a pleasure to be in any rehearsal room with Richie. He's just smart, funny, generous to his other actors, easy to work with. And I think he plays, this is Richie and I were texting last night after rehearsal, and I said, thanks for being willing to climb the mountain again. He has more than half the words in the play. He has to play a huge emotional journey in the play. And I think it takes a lot out of him. I think it should take a lot out of any responsible actor to play this role. Mm-hmm. And that he'd lived through it with us at Circle and was willing to say yes again thrilled me. Yeah. That he wanted to take it on again, because it's a joy, I know, for an actor to have a role like this, but it is undeniably a burden. Mm-hmm. It is a lot of work.
Yeah.
And so the two of them are a magical combination, Randy and Richie. I call them each other's names all the time in rehearsal by accident, and they're very understanding. But it's just a joy to be with them. Yeah.
Yeah, and that role is, for all the reasons you just mentioned, is, as I come to learn, not having much experience in live theater, is a really challenging one, just because the memorization issue is huge. And other actors who have played the role in other places have said, well, I signed on to do this role, and then I read the script and I went, oh my God, what have I got myself into?
It's a lot.
But there is trying to find a way to describe this, but there is a lot of living, suffering, growth, tears. There's just a lot to this role.
Right. The journey is long
and
painful.
And painful. and exhausting. And there are some moments of the play that are just breathtaking.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the other thing, just kind of thinking out loud here is I have got initially when we first did it, it was very hard for me to put this play up there because it was so personal. And I think that at the meeting at your house when Catherine was there, my wife, and she expressed her apprehensions, fears about having. She basically said, "This is a real family, and this is a real guy," and the cast just kind of coalesced around her. And Gabe Whitehurst said, "We get it, Catherine, but what you should know is that when people are leaving the theater, they're not going to be thinking about you and Tim. They're going to be thinking about their own lives." And so through that, and just through seeing it a number of times, I've got a bit of a detachment from some of that. But just some of the things that Richie does at the most painful and pivotal moments in Tim's life, what he does with those moments is just so humbling and so beautiful. And I'm just, like I said, it's a beautiful thing to be a part of. I want to. Gabe Whitehurst also is a wonderful actor who has some heavy lifting to do. Lana Hoover is part of the cast.
Yes, they're terrific, both of them.
And thanks to Steve Morris at Theatre Arlington for bringing this back. Theatre Arlington is a wonderful place. So just to summarize, how in the hell do you summarize this?
Well, I think it's a play that speaks to almost everyone. Every now and then a play comes along, I think, that has a story that is so universal that audiences really have an opportunity to respond as a group. And as you say, leave the theater feeling like they saw some kind of an insight, if not into their own lives, into the lives of somebody very close to them. Everyone goes through the dark night of the soul. We all have periods in our life where things don't seem right, and we're trying to find our way. There's a moment in the play where Tim says, I was writing newspaper stories and trying to get through day to day. And so we all have periods where we're just trying to get through day to day, but we're kind of lost. And the play speaks to that. Mm-hmm. And I think the play encourages us that there is, in fact, a way out of those journeys. And it's not simplistic. It doesn't just wave if you just met Fred, then everything would be fine, right? Tim says frequently about all of the steps that he had to go through to get to a healthy place. Mm-hmm. But it is a play, I think, about hope. Mm-hmm. And I think there are a lot of people in the world right now who are feeling like all the outside forces are creating a very dark place mm-hmm. for them. Or for a number of other people. And so this is a play about hope, and I don't think hope is ever out of style, and sadly I think it's very much needed mm-hmm. right now. So I hope people will come see it at Theatre Arlington.
Well, in listening to your talk, I had this thought that one of the things Fred specializes in on television is creating a safe space
yes.
for his young viewers, young and old. Dealing with often difficult things, but creating a safe space to deal with them in. And it has been my experience in all the places that I've seen the play that when you're sitting there dealing with the hard things that these characters are going through and causing or inspiring the audience members to experience them too and feel from their own lives or in other ways these same things, they're able to do that because this play creates a safe space, like Fred did on television. It's intimate, it's safe, it's real. It's an invitation to people to not feel like there's anything wrong with them if they're suffering. That, as Randy says, or Fred says, it's normal. But that is not the final word.
Right.
The suffering isn't the final word. It's the beauty that can happen when people kind of lean into that suffering with other people.
Yes.
So it's really, this play is really a communal experience, and maybe all live theater is, but in my experience is, I just revel in the fact that at moments during this play, all the oxygen has been sucked out of the room.
Yes.
And all you feel is humanity.
Yes. Yes.
So with that, I love you, my friend.
You too.
Best of luck. I'll be back in rehearsals to bug you on Monday.
We can't wait to have you there.
And please come. It's Theatre Arlington. Begins August 8th. Subscribe to this podcast so we can continue to build community here. And until the next time, thank you for joining us.